Okay, well, my name is Joe Alberti. I'm one of the instructional designers within the Department of Cyber Learning. So you've probably worked, if you've attended one of these in the past few days, you've probably worked with my colleague, Stephanie. So her and I have very similar roles within the university. But today, what we're going to talk about are ways that we can increase student engagement within the course. So engaging with the content and increasing that engagement between instructor and student as well. I like to keep these really kind of open and kind of two-way communication here. So as we're going through this training today, if you have questions about anything, um, please feel free, jump in, ask questions. Don't ever feel like you're interrupting me. The more questions, the better. So you could jump in, just unmute yourself and jump in that way. If you're more comfortable going through chat, I have the chat window open on my other screen here, and I can answer questions that way as well. I may pause to read and then answer them for you, but either one of those methods are completely fine today. So what are we going to talk about? And again, how do we increase that engagement? So before we leave here today, we're going to make sure that you feel comfortable creating a discussion board within Blackboard, going through some of the different settings and functions that you can use with the Blackboard. We're going to have you create a journal. And again, we'll look at some of those different settings. We'll show how we could utilize some of those new AI features for discussion boards and for journals. We'll finish up by discussing sending a course announcement, and kind of sprinkled throughout this are going to be discussions on best practices around student engagement. So best practices with discussion boards, journals, some of the AI features as well. So again, if you have questions on anything here today, please do not hesitate to ask questions. So we are going to go ahead and we are going to jump into Blackboard. So all I've done at this point is I've logged into Blackboard. And from the institution page, I clicked on courses. This allowed me to view all the courses I have. And I just clicked on the course that I want to begin editing. So we could see here, this is really just a kind of a plain template here, nothing too fancy, nothing too flashy. Now what we would want to do is we would want to decide, how we want to build this framework for this course. And this is going to be different across the board, right? Subjects, how the class is offered, is it hybrid, are we supplementing face-to-face? Is it a fully online course? Right, so let's say for this example, our course is more of a hybrid, right? Where maybe once a week we do our work online, and then the second class of the week we meet face to face. Okay, so we'll kind of go with that example for today. Now, what I'll do is I'll put a placeholder in here on where I want my discussions to live. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build another one of these learning modules, right? And I'm sure you've seen Stephanie do this. So we'll do the plus sign, we'll do create learning module. We'll call this discussions. And we'll make this visible to students. And we'll save it. So now that we have our placeholder created for these discussions, we could begin going in here and looking at the content for week one, maybe, if this is what we're starting with, and really kind of deciding where we want to build these discussions in. So let's say our focus for week one is really just how to be an active participant in an online course or a hybrid course like this. So what we'll do is we'll click the discussions learning module to open it. And from within the learning module, we're just going to click the plus sign. Okay, again, we're going to go to that first option of create. And we get our menu pane that opens. So we're going to scroll down and go under participation and engagement. And we're going to select this very first option of discussion. Now, when it brings it into my course, it brings it in with a very generic name, new discussion, and the date that we created it. Right? What we're going to want to do is name that something a little bit more meaningful for the students and a little bit more meaningful for us in the grade book when we're looking at things. So what I'm going to do is call this week 1 discussion. Once we name that discussion board, we're going to come over and we're going to click the drop down where it says hidden from students. Now I can make this visible to students so that when they come in, they'll see everything. No problem. They can begin interacting with our discussion board. If I wanted the discussion board to appear at a certain time and then really cut access to the students at another time, right? So maybe give them a window where they can access it. Instead of making it visible to students, I'd want to go ahead and I'd want to click release conditions. And here I could set my date and time. So I could say, let's show this on August 26th. And we'll say at 12 o'clock a.m. And we're going to say, let's hide this after August 30th. We'll say 11:59 p.m. Okay, so the students will be able to basically access this discussion board Monday through Friday. So once Friday night hits at 11:59 p.m., they're no longer going to be able to access this discussion board using these release conditions. Save it, and that's set, ready to go. Okay, so we've named it. We have our release condition set, or we just left it visible to students. Either one of those works. Now we're going to want to build our prompt. And we could build this ourselves. So we could say, so we gave an open-ended prompt here, right? So we're going to have them watch a video, right? And after reviewing the video, we really want them to identify 3 strategies that they want to improve for their study skills, since this is going to be more of a hybrid approach. So we're not going to have that instructor presence, 3 days a week or 2 days a week. Okay, and then we're going to ask them, how do you plan on improving these skills? Now, what we want with a discussion board is really 2 things, right? We want the discussion board to have an initial post, which is the student's original thought. And then we really want them to reply to a certain number of people on the discussion post, or forum rather. So maybe we want them to reply to 2 people. Now, if we're using a weekly structure, like we would in a hybrid class or an online course, we could go with something as simple as we name this week 1 discussion. So now we're actually giving them the times, right, and the days that we want them to reply. So again, here we have our initial post that's going to be due no later than Wednesday by 11:59. So Wednesday, end of the day, you have to have your own original unique discussion post created within our forum. Right now, as the week goes on, now we want to start seeing those replies coming in Thursday, Friday. And one thing that I've put into the discussion boards in the past, and it's been kind of hit or miss if it's helped. I put in, please try to separate your replies through different days. So please don't post everything Wednesday and do all your replies Wednesday. Maybe make your initial post Wednesday, do a post Thursday, do a post Friday. So now we're kind of spreading it out throughout the week. Now, what we need to do is we do need to put that video in here. So that's the nice part about these discussion boards is we can add documents, we can add links out to websites, any resource really that we want them to review. Well, here, for this example, we want them to go ahead and we want them to review just a video that we have, right? So what I'm going to do is I am going to click share, and I am going to copy this video URL. Copy. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my discussion board. I've just copied the address of the video. And I have my cursor in here where I want the video to go. So if you follow my cursor all the way over to the end, we get the option over here to insert content. So what I'm going to do is click that arrow down, that drop arrow, and I'm going to select that third option down, media. And now what I'm going to do is type in or paste in that URL. And if I have any students with disabilities, really they're going to need that alternative text in here. So I recommend just building this in as you're building the class. This way, your class is going to be ADA compliant as you build it, and you'll never have to go back and worrying about updating anything. Okay, so we'll just get a quick explanation in there and we'll insert. Now you can see this open right within my browser here. So this is good. I like this because this allows the students to watch the video within Blackboard. They're never taken out of Blackboard and then be able to create their reply. So once we have everything added here, we're just going to click save. And now we have that locked in for the students to review the video and answer our 2 prompt questions. Now, as of right now, we don't have any settings set up for this discussion board. So right now, it's not even really graded. So what we're going to do is we're going to want to jump in those settings and take a look at settings that are unique to discussion boards. But before I do that, does anybody have any questions on creating the discussion board, getting that prompt in there, different resources you can use?
Joe?
Yes.
This is Patty, and I do have one question. When you said that will always be in there, will that video stay even if your course is copied to like another semester?
Yeah, great question. That video will always be there. The only time that video would come up as video unavailable is if the owner or creator of the video decided to take it down off YouTube.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, well, let's jump in and take a look at some of the settings that we could use for this discussion board. So to access these settings, I'm going to go just to the right of the settings and click this gear icon. And now I have some options here. So I could set this discussion board to be post first. So basically what this means is if the initial post is due Wednesday by 11:59 p.m. and I'm procrastinating in your class and I come in here Wednesday at 11:30 and think to myself, I'm just going to see what other people wrote and kind of mix together my own reply based off that. If it's unchecked, post first is not checked. When the student comes into the discussion board, they will be able to see everybody's initial post. However, if we check this box for post first, then when the students come into the discussion board, it's going to look blank, like nobody's created anything at that point. So it's going to force the students to really come up with their own original post without seeing what anyone else posted. Now, I can prevent students from editing their discussion board. I personally don't use this because, as you can see, as we were going through, I sometimes make typos, and I always like to be able to go back to fix them. So if we have that checked, they're not going to be able to do it. But if you did want to prevent them from editing it, you could just check that box. So if you are going to grade your discussion, you are not going to be able to allow those anonymous replies. So you'll see once I click grade discussion, I can't even click this, right? But if I weren't grading the discussion, I could allow for an anonymous reply from a student. But again, we're not going to track that through grading. And for our example here, we do want to grade the discussion. So I am going to check the box for grading. Now, when I scroll down, I have some options here of setting a due date. So we're going to set this due date to the 23rd. I think we had that set to at 11:59 p.m. Okay, so what we're going to do is change this to 24th. Let's see. I may have pushed that out. I think I did it to the 30th. So we'll do 31st, 11:59 p.m. I'm going to cancel this. I'm going to have to go back and look at what I set for those release conditions. Okay, the 30th. That's where I was getting confused at. .30 at 11:59. Okay, so we have our due date in there now. And I could check the box here to stop the discussion after the due date and time. So at that point in time, the students would no longer be able to come in here and reply to anybody's posts or reply to anybody that commented on their posts. Basically, it's going to lock that discussion board in place at that date and time. So if I scroll down, I can see I'm going to grade this using points. And we'll say this is going to be worth 10 points. And lock that in. Now, the last thing we'll look at here is adding a grading rubric. So if I do have a rubric that is associated with my discussion boards, I could click on Add Grading Rubric, and I could go ahead and I can use my discussion board rubric and click Add. And now that's added. So the students will be able to see exactly how I'm going to be grading them and what really my expectations are for this assignment or this discussion board. Okay, once we've gone through, we have all of these discussion board settings created, set to how we want. We're going to save them, and we're set and ready to go. So our students can begin using this discussion board the first week of class now. Okay, so just as a recap here, again, what we're going to do to create those discussions, we can point to that plus sign in our learning module, create, go down under participation engagement, select discussion, we'll name it. We can set any of the release conditions that we want. For this example, we'll just make it visible to students. Type in our prompt and click the gear for our settings. Now, one option that we haven't discussed yet is the ability to auto-generate a discussion. And this is going to be done using the Microsoft integration of AI through Blackboard. So I'm going to click on auto-generate discussion. And here I could type a description. Okay, so we've kind of asked a question here. Now I could change this cognitive level. By default, it's going to land on Inspire Me. I could change that down to maybe something more of a lower level of Create. I like to keep it on Inspire Me because then it gives me examples with different cognitive levels. And I could change my complexity. Now, what I'm going to do, because we are using the AI generated discussion, I am going to ask it to generate the discussion title as well. Okay, so once I've gone through, I could click generate. And here I have some different examples of what I can use for discussion titles and prompts. So since we said we were kind of talking about more of a hybrid course, let's use this middle one, for example. And now we're going to click add. So I could see it put in that prompt there for me. So all I really have to do is go in and add. Right? I can also edit anything I want in here. I can add resources in here. Okay, once we're good, we have everything set. Again, we'll just click save and go through and set all the different settings that we've gone through that we want to be specific to this discussion board. So that was using the AI basically the auto-generate discussion. And again, that's Microsoft's integration into Blackboard here. So before we move on from discussion boards over to journals, does anybody have any questions?
Joe, where did you click to get the auto-generated versus making it your own?
Yep, so what I did was when I came in here, instead of clicking into the box to type, I went up and I clicked on auto generate discussion. Excuse me, which is on the top right-hand side here. And that's what opened the window for me. Now, a new feature that's nice in here is instead of typing a description, I could use a content picker and select course items rather. I could come in and I could really click on anything I want in here. This is more of a blank template, so I don't really have anything in here at the time, but I would be able to go back and maybe have the AI generate um, my discussion board based off of a document I've built in here. Okay, and that was just under select course items. Okay, does anybody else have any other questions about discussion boards before we go ahead and shift gears? All right. Well, we have our discussions created. So now let's go ahead and let's build a framework to hold our journals now. So again, I'm just going to plus sign, click creates, click learning module, and we're going to name this journals. Make this visible to students and save. Okay, so we can see this is starting to come together. We're starting to get that framework built for the different areas within our course that we want to use. So let's go ahead and let's maybe build a journal. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the learning module for journals. It's going to expand. And within that, I'm going to click the plus sign. And then I'm going to click create. Again, we're going to scroll down on this menu pane and we are going to look for journal. And we're just going to click on this to open this. Now, what you're going to see is journals are going to look very, very similar to discussion boards. And a lot of times I'll get the question, when would I want to use a journal over a discussion board or vice versa? And the nice part about journals is this is really going to be a private space for you and the student, right? So the student's you're going to create a journal prompt, right? And the student's going to create their replies. You could reply back to them. So it's really a nice way to personalize your course and really provide that one-on-one communication. Really, now I really like these in online courses because it really does a great job of personalizing that course for the students, since typically in an online course, we're really not going to see them. Okay, so we'll call this week 2 journal. And here we can go and we can grab a prompt that we have, right? So I can go ahead and I can paste a prompt in. So it's going to be more very specific to the students here. And really kind of get them to think more internally, where they're going to provide information. You're going to be able to reply back to them. Right, so we'll just click save. And now we'll come over to the journal settings. So I'm going to click on that gear icon, just like we did for journal or for discussions. Right, and here I'm going to check the box to grade my journal. So I do have the option of allowing users to edit and delete entries, and allow the users to edit and delete comments. Since this is more of a one-on-one interaction where the students are really kind of leading this, discussion in here. They're leading our conversation. I would probably consider leaving those checked. However, if I thought to myself, I don't want them to have the ability of deleting, my comments that I'm making, maybe I'm gonna uncheck that. Next, we'll set a due date. Okay, and we'll put the time in there. And we'll end by adjusting any point values that we have for this. So maybe we're going to make this one worth 15 points. And last, we're just going to lock in these settings by clicking Save. So now when my students come in, they'll be able to basically reply to my journal, our journal prompt here. We'll be able to see what their reply is, and we'll actually be able to post a reply on their thread, right? So that's where we're going to get the conversation back and forth. And again, what I like about this is maybe this is a place where the students would feel more comfortable saying something about their long-term career goals or steps to move closer. Maybe they wouldn't feel comfortable with saying in front of a full class of students, 25 students, for example. Okay, so just to recap the steps to build those journals, again, we're going to go to +, create. Let's scroll down on this menu pane and we're going to click journal. Maybe we're going to call this week 4 journal. Now, just like we did with the discussion board, we also have the ability of using auto-generate for our journals. Okay, so we'll just put a basic prompt in there. Again, we could change that cognitive level. And we can move the complexity up or move the complexity down. I'm going to choose to give me the journal titles as well. And generate. So what this is going to do is this is going to generate, think about what we put into the prompt, what we set for the complexity, and it's really going to give us some good options here. Maybe I want to go with this bottom one, more of a higher level thinking on the cognitive level. And we'll click add. Okay, so same thing, I have everything in here. We're going to save it. And again, I could go through, click the gear icon, choose to grade this journal. I could set my due date, or I could clear that out and have no due date at all. And again, end by typing in my point value for the journal. Once we're all good with these settings, we're just going to click save. And everything is now locked in for our journals. So we can kind of see how this is working. So we have some discussions created and we have some journals created. Right? We can continue building these out using those AI features if we'd like. Again, whatever AI gives you, this is what you're prompting it with. And really, you're going to want to take a good read on that. Make sure that there's nothing in there that you want to remove, or maybe, it's good, but you want to add to it for certain things. Maybe add a document to go along with it. So you are definitely in control of what's going to go into your course if you choose to use the AI stuff. You may look at it, you may see what it generates and say, this is kind of not hitting the mark here. Let me try to reprompt it through that description. Or, I have a good idea of what I want to do. I'll just write it on my own. So a couple different options on how you can go about creating both discussions and journals. Okay, now the last item we have on our list is discussing some options with announcements. But before I move on here, I want to pause and see if anybody has any questions on what we just went through with journals, or if anything came to mind about discussions. Okay, well, let's take a look now at our last item here, and that is going to be creating our announcements that'll go out to our students. So if you follow my cursor up to the top of the screen, we're going to look for that third option over of announcements. This is going to open our announcements screen. What we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create a new announcement. So to create a new announcement, I'm just going to use this plus sign over here on the top right side of my screen. And when I click that, this really opens a window that looks very similar to a email at this point. So what we'll want to do is really begin by typing out our title. So maybe we want to welcome all of our members to the course. So we have our title. Right, so maybe we want to type something like this and remind them, welcome to the class, excited to have you here. Make sure you take a good look at that syllabus before we have our first in-person meeting. So you could free text in here, you could type in here. You have the ability of adding attachments. You can add links to outside resources. You can add images. And one of the new really cool features here is you have the ability of adding an audio or a video recording, right? And for hybrid online courses, this is a really great way to personalize your course, to be able to have them watch you, through video or through audio, listen through audio, give them a nice welcome message to the course. So if I click this option, right, I'll have to go ahead and I'll have to click allow to allow my microphone to use it. And now I have the option of going ahead and clicking the start button. I'm not going to click it because I'm using my microphone through WebEx, and that may have some bad effects for me. So I'm going to go ahead and just not click it. But what you would want to do is go ahead and click this button here. And if you wanted it to be audio, you could go ahead, you could begin speaking. And when you're done, you would just click it again. And it's going to bring in your recording here. If you wanted to, you could click the video to enable your video. And you could see here, now my video is on. And I could go ahead and I could begin speaking more into the camera now to make it a little bit more personalized for my online learners. And once we have our typed message, any images, any files, any audio or video added to this screen, we could go ahead and we could post at this time. What I like to do before I post the announcement is I like to come down and check the box to send an email copy to recipients. So what's going to happen when we do this is they're going to get a copy of this announcement in their YSU email. Then when they come into the course the first time, excuse me, after we create this announcement, when they open the course, the announcement's going to pop up automatically. So the nice part is they're getting it in two different places. Okay, we can go ahead, we can click post. And that's going to automatically post out to my students. And it's going to also send them an email to their YSU emails. Okay, so again, just to recap that, under announcements, we just clicked the plus sign. Okay, we came in, typed a title. We came into the message area and we went ahead, we either typed out our message, we used the audio video recording for a message, provided a link or an attachment, checked to send that copy out through the email, and then clicked post when we were done. Does anybody have any questions about creating announcements with the new Blackboard features? Okay, well, that's actually going to bring us back to our training objectives here. And we looked at how we could create that discussion journal, work through those different settings. We looked at adding a rubric for the discussion boards. Then we went ahead, we shifted gears and went into creating journals. Again, having that more one-on-one space for interaction, where maybe the students will feel a little bit comfortable opening up on more sensitive topics. We looked at ways that we could use the AI features within Blackboard, both for the discussion and the journal. And we talked about sending those course announcements. And as we were talking, we were kind of talking about best practices as we were going. If you do have any questions after we leave here today, please do not hesitate to reach out to our cyber learning department. Again, that's going to be Jessica Chill as the director, myself, Stephanie Adams as full-time instructional designers, and Dr. Rachel Fabro-Vasca as a part-time instructional designer here within the department. Again, anything we can do to help answer any questions you have or help you along throughout the process of using Blackboard, we're more than happy to do. So please do not hesitate to reach out at any time. Other than that, thank you very much for taking the time to meet with me here today. I am going to stay on, so if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to stay on after and answer any questions you have. If not, again, thank you very much for taking the time to attend today and have a great rest of your day.